Hello and welcome everyone. Today's webinar is going to be about parenting. So let's begin. I'm Alexandra Geczi, an attorney and mediator in Dallas, Texas. I provide opportunities for women and their families to have a fresh start and a better future. So today's topic is going to be about parenting. Times of crisis can actually be a great opportunity to become a better parent and to nurture your relationship with your children. With just a few tweaks, you and your family can not just survive a crisis or epidemic, but they can thrive in them. So let's dive in. Okay, so the first thing is let's examine why it's important to be mindful of our children's experiences during crisis. I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with our own emotions that maybe we need to take a step back and be a little bit more empathetic to what the children are going through. Scientific research has shown that the brains of children continue to develop through early adulthood into their early and mid-20s. So children reflect our own behavior and attitudes, adapt them and carry them forward into their adult lives. And that means we have to be mindful and nurture their developing brains and what we're feeding those brains for a really long time. It's not just during early childhood, it is through adolescence, teen years, and into young adulthood. They can be positively or negatively affected by what they see. When they see their parents struggling with stress, anxiety, and confusion, they're going to adapt those traits and act out in negative ways. When they see their parents handle crisis confidently, then that's in turn going to reflect positively in them. And so crisis can actually be an opportunity to help children develop resiliency and confidence. And so it really is, you have more power and control over that than you realize. With COVID, we're now sheltering in place, and so our children are observing us even more closely than usual. So the things that maybe you could have gotten away with, or behaviors that you did outside of the home now are going to be more highlighted because we have so much time together. And so it's even more important for parents to have a plan so that they can stay calm. We should also be more alert to look out for signs that our children may be exhibiting stress and anxiety that could also impact their brain development. So if we want to stop the toxic cycles and behaviors that keep us stuck in negative situations, we have to change our own behavior and model behavior for our children that will help set them free as well. So next, let's talk about the specifics. That's probably why you guys are all here is, what can we be doing right now and in other times of crisis to help our children through them? So first and foremost, you're going to start with yourselves. We start with ourselves, and you got to look inward. Put your own masks first. Not exactly a COVID pun, but you guys have probably heard that saying. When you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks come down, you have to put yourself first and put your mask on first before you can help others. It's still the same thing in life. Like, you want to be a good mom, you got to nurture yourself and take care of yourself so you can be that great mom that you really want to be. And so a mindset shift is often the things that will be the most effective. You have to learn to let things go, even though it can be very difficult to do so. And you have to accept that you can only control so much. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. So while mindset is the biggest challenge, it's also going to be the biggest game changer for getting through crisis situations. We presented a webinar a couple weeks ago on mindset. So I'm not going to go too much into mindset today, but if you'd like a replay of it, please contact us and we can send you a video replay link. So the next thing about working on ourselves is making sure that you actually ironically have isolation, basically in the form of me time. So get out of the house and be in your own space every day, even if it's for 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Hopefully you can get an hour or two if you can, even if it's not all at one place or at one time. But, get out of the house to walk, enjoy nature or some music. You can sit in your car in the garage in silence or listening to music. And if you're still pestered and don't have your space there, maybe go to a parking lot, drive your car into an empty parking lot and just kind of sit there and chill out and relax. Trust me, you won't be weird for doing it. Lots of moms do it. So, and I actually wanted to take a moment here and show you guys a quick little video. Let's see if I can get this pulled up. All right, I think it's loading. going to share my screen with you guys. Okay, I think you guys can see. We got to sit through the commercial. Oh, let's see. Okay. So we can skip those ads. Uh-oh. Here, let me see. All right, let me start that. Let me start that a little bit. Several of you are kind of saying that you can't hear the video. So let me start that over real quick. All right. All right, can you guys hear that? Okay, sorry, it looks like it's being picked up by my computer mic. So let me see if I can maybe mute that. And we'll try it this way. Can you guys hear that? Okay. Well, then what I can do is I'll just send you guys the link and you guys can watch it later. It's a cute little cute video on moms and why we're always so tired. So I thought that was a little light humor. All right. Can you guys hear me? All right. So there's the link to the video if you guys want to watch it later. It was just kind of a funny little humor. I thought that moms would appreciate. You know, you're in your car and just kind of getting that me time and just listening to that I thought was kind of funny. So I was actually trying to go on YouTube looking for a skit I'd seen a while back about moms taking breaks in the Target parking lot. I think it was by SNL or somebody, I can't remember who it was, but I couldn't find it. I found this video instead and I thought it was something to just kind of lighten the humor for a little bit so that we can all take a little humor break for ourselves. Okay, so you guys watch that later and we'll move on. All right, some more things that you can do to take care of yourself. Self-care, so things like exercise. And I've got a couple of links here for you guys for free stuff regarding exercise. Peloton is giving away some free trials. I know that these two, there's YouTube has some, or no, bustle.com and money.com had some workout apps options. There's people that are doing, you know, turning regular bikes into training bikes. I know Katie had done that before. So there's a lot of different things. And so you guys need to remember to keep taking care of yourselves as far as exercise goes. There's meditation. So there's another article I'm gonna link for you to copy that and post in here in the chat to you guys. So I have to say that the meditation app, my favorite one is Calm. and you may have seen the commercials for it and stuff. Calm is really great because it's not, I don't actually use the meditation function of it. I like there's bedtime stories. So you can have grown-up bedtime stories. You can also have for your kids. So my daughter sometimes has trouble falling asleep, so she likes to listen to the Calm app kids stories. It also has like workshops, so you can do like mindset workshops free. Like they'll do like you know, a series, like a 4-part module set. So when you sign up for the subscription, I think it's only like less than $10 a month or so. And you can access all these workshops that they do, which are really cool. So sometimes when I'm driving places, I'll be listening to the workshops that talk about mindset and getting calm and things like that. So that's a really cool app. So I like the Calm app for a lot of different reasons. Other self-care stuff that you need to be thinking about right now and in times of crisis is your mental health. And we've got a bunch of referrals with people, therapists and counselors that we work with. But for those who are interested in telehealth, this is a great little article that I'm posting here. Shape.com did an article on mental health online telehealth options. And then don't forget medical stuff too. And so I'm copying this link for the medical telehealth. So some people may be afraid of going to the doctors right now or taking their kids to the doctors. So there's a lot of apps out there that can help assess your situations through telehealth, you know, online through the phone and stuff like that. So check out those resources as well. Those might be an option. And, you know, talk to your doctor that you already have and see if they're offering telehealth as well. And then in part of taking care of ourselves, you know, there's the isolation side of it. Make sure you separate and have your me time, but you also need to have the other extreme of connecting with others. You know, depression and anxiety can be enhanced if you're not doing the things to connect with others. You can dive kind of more self-inward and kind of spiral down into anxiety and depression. So make sure that you are reaching out to others. You know, right now, with COVID, one of the good things is that there's a lot of online communities popping up right now. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but you know, explore those communities. I know Facebook and a lot of churches right now are offering online communities. Those can be great places for you to connect with, you know, your tribe. You know, and it's also this time in times of crisis are opportunities to evaluate your relationships and either develop them or create a plan to separate from those relationships that are causing you harm and toxicity. So once we've kind of focused on ourselves and started healing ourselves and getting to a place where we can be calm and confident for our children, then we want to shift our focus to the children themselves. And so what can we do to help our children specifically? So I kind of separated into the littles and the bigs, and you know, there's no exact cutoff. You know, I've got a 6-year-old, I mean a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old at home, and so my 5-year-old is definitely, I would consider, a little. My 9-year-old, she's a little bit more precocious, so she's kind of entering that big phase. And so a lot of these techniques, when I talk to the counselors, I talked to several mental health professionals in preparing for today's webinar. And so we talked about kind of the differences between the littles and the bigs and kind of the strategies you can use for each of them. And so I think my daughter, while some of the little stuff would work on her, some of the big stuff would too. So you just kind of use these strategies for kind of what your age child is and see what works and you know, kind of develop your own methods. So with the littles, books, there's a lot of books out there that are explaining COVID. So they may not understand what's going on. So if you want suggestions for books that are out there, I went onto Amazon and kind of did a quick search. There's a lot of them out there. I know I've had several come across my desk as a family lawyer. There's a lot of authors out there that will send us, hey, you know, here's a link to my book about the COVID crisis and all this. So I found them also on Amazon there. So if you guys click on that link there, that'll give you some books that you can order. And a lot of them are either, I saw a couple of them that were free or they're Kindle edition. So you don't have to order hardback or anything like that. You can get immediate access and download those. So when we're talking about connection, you want to make sure with littles, it's going to be a slightly different form of connection than it is with the bigs. So with littles, the connection is more about connecting to the parents. That's where they're at this age developing their confidence and resiliency from. And so they need to feel secure. And so connection to your parent, to your caregiver is really much more important than the other external people. It's still important to connect to others, but and for socialization and all that. But making sure that they feel secure in your connection with them. That's where their confidence is going to come from. And we're going to talk about 10-minute parenting. That was kind of the number one thing that I got from all the counselors. 10-minute parenting is also very effective with the littles, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Observe. So with the littles, what are you looking for in order to see how things are being affected and affecting them? So for them, you want to watch for changes in behavior like increased number of tantrums, the level of the tantrum, if they become more clingy than usual, changes in appetite, maybe they become suddenly hungrier or lack of appetite. And all those can be signs of stress, depression, or anxiety. So if you start seeing those kinds of changes in behavior, as moms, we're a little bit more attuned to some of that sometimes. Those could be signs, beginning signs of stress and anxiety. So you definitely want to reach out to a mental health professional who specializes in helping children through stress and anxiety that can help them and deal with this. And then maybe even teach you some coping skills and things like that too. Because we are reflecting on them. So for the bigs, when you communicate with them, the books may not be the way to go. You want to communicate with them openly, verbally. They're able to verbalize, but you want to communicate without judgment about their stressors and the feelings that they're experiencing right now. And again, if that's a conversation that you don't feel comfortable having, read up on the books out there for you, or talk to a mental health professional that can help you with those conversations. And encourage the kids to communicate and open up about that. And if they don't feel comfortable verbally expressing, get them a journal, and maybe they can write down their thoughts in a journal. And, it could be a digital journal, maybe an app that they can record their emotions and feelings in, or a written journal, like something nice, like a nice pen and journal with that would be nice. For them, connection. So connection for them is more important with their peers and the outside world at this point. Once they start getting older, they want to connect with the outside world more than they do with their parents. Also keep in mind that technology is very much more ingrained in them than it was for a lot of us. I'm a Gen X and into my 40s. And so I get both worlds, but I still tend to be a little less technology focused, more nature type. But I see my kids definitely trending towards having that iPad daily and understanding the technology way better in some sense than I do. So we just have to realize that their generation is growing up with technology much more ingrained. So things like grounding them from their iPhones or their iPads, when that's how that they connect and communicate with the outside world, can actually negatively impact them. And that's actually, that was kind of an aha moment for us personally, because I think we were having trouble homeschooling my 9-year-old. She's like most kids, doesn't want to do the homework if she doesn't have to. And so, I think my husband was working with her and he got really frustrated. He was like, that's it, no more iPad. He takes the iPad away from her and, she gets sullen and everything. And I was like, I don't think that's very effective, because then she started acting out and throwing things and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's probably not the best way to handle it, but I didn't really know what else. So when I talked to my counselor friends, they were like, well, that's because what she does on her iPad. So she's connecting with her friends. She's basically going on virtual play dates every day. She's spending, it's a game called Roblox. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that one, but it's like a little virtual reality world, and they meet up. So their friends like meet up in this little virtual reality world, and they go on these little adventures like mermaid adventures or, hunting a shark or something like that. And so, so by taking the iPad away from her, we didn't realize that we were negatively impacting the way that she's connecting with the outside world, which is helping her cope with the stress. So we've now switched to other forms of discipline, and it's working much better. So, so that's just a tip out there for those of you who may have done the same thing. All right, encouraging activities that they can do with their peers. So something else, older kids want to still connect with their peers, and virtually sometimes is not enough. What can you do? So you can do Zoom or virtual playdates, like I just talked about. There's this game called Roblox, which tends to be with sort of the preteen crowd. I don't know if teens are really into that one. It's a little basic. Socially distanced hangouts. So bicycles. We've actually done a couple of playdates where we rode bicycles with another family in the neighborhood. my daughter's best friend. And so we all just went on our bicycles. We were socially distanced, you know, it was nice, but the girls were able to go and kind of ride around in the areas we've got around the neighborhood. And so it was really nice for them to spend time like that. Like we didn't get to, you know, congregate or anything like that, but that was nice. Another thing I've seen, a lot of older kids, teenagers in our neighborhood have been taking walks and jogs together, like working out together, or they've been just hanging out at the school. So you'll drive by and they'll sit at picnic tables, and so they have several picnic tables kind of around in a circle, and so the kids will each take one table, and so they'll socially distance that way, but they'll hang out. And I think that's a really great way for the older kids to spend time together and not feel so suffocated and isolated. Another tip is whatever it is, whatever activities they're doing, your kids are doing, give them some privacy to do those things. I think that also helps build confidence, and allowing them to have that private time to communicate and interact and connect with others. Observation. So as far as observing and watching for changes in behavior for them, again, it's going to be changes in appetite, which, you know, increase changes up or down. If they're unusually angry or sullen, or sometimes they'll make odd statements. So if they have a series of odd statements, and I can't remember now what the example was, that you know, sometimes they'll say weird things, which, you know, one off is okay, but if they start making a series of odd statements, you know, start thinking about if there's maybe some connection to underlying emotions or anxiety, or depression and things like that. And just overall, be careful about getting comfortable in isolation and in quarantine, because isolation can feed those negative emotions of anxiety and depression. And then when school resumes in the fall, in whatever form it will be, you know, the stress and anxiety could actually increase as well, because they're going to have to be reintroduced into these social situations that they haven't been used to for months. So just kind of make sure that you are socializing them in whatever way you can to try to minimize that anxiety as well. All right, now let's see. School and work at home. Who all is juggling work and school? So I am, and I'm failing miserably at it. So just so if you feel that way too, you know, it's okay. We're all in this together. So what we have to do, so tips that I was provided, so, you know, you have to let go of some of the rigidity that we had before, and you're gonna have to create new routines. So some of the rules that worked before are not gonna work now, and trying to hold on to them is just gonna create more stress and frustration. So just let those go. What doesn't work, just let it go. You can come back to it later whenever we resume, or just develop new routines and new habits and just make it work. Don't create unnecessary stress. Keep in mind that online education and online therapy can be challenging for some kids, because if they have short attention spans, or if they have a lack of privacy to focus on, or to talk to a counselor, those are things that you kind of want to be aware of, so that you can work with that. Don't just give up on those things. Just by keeping that in mind, you can create the environments needed for those children to thrive in. So, you know, create a dedicated space that's for them. And then consider maybe shorter, more frequent focus on work. So if they can't sit for 30 minutes, maybe just do a 20-minute or a 15-minute session at one time. They don't have to get the whole homework assignment done, or they don't necessarily have to talk to the therapist for that whole hour or whatever. A couple of the therapists that work with kids that I talked to, they actually said that they're breaking up their therapy sessions into smaller sessions for the little kids, just because they just can't be as involved in a full hour. Whereas usually they did play therapy and stuff. And so they're having to be a little bit more creative about some of the ways that they interact with the kids and activities that they have them do. So it's okay. Focus on the more enjoyable parts of the work to avoid traumatizing your kids. So if there's enjoyable parts, focus on that and try to, you know, reward that and enjoy that. Use your time as an opportunity to nurture your relationship with your child rather than creating more trauma. So the last thing we want to do is have them create trauma and stress over all this work that they're doing. So try to find ways to make it creative and enjoyable. Schedule your own day to include time with your child to do work. And that, you know, that can be a challenge, but schedule time out of your busy day and all the million things that you're doing to try to spend time with them. Even if it's, if you're cooking a meal, include your child. That's a great way that you can spend time with them and multitask as well. Create rewards for accomplishments and have the kids chip in with housework. That also helps build resiliency and confidence. All right. So what is that number one tip that we got from all the counselors? Every single counselor I spoke with had this one suggestion that was common among all of them, and we call it 10-minute parenting. So what is 10-minute parenting? It is basically short bursts of attention on the kids, and it works amazingly well. My 5 and 9-year-old kids, we were having some issues at the beginning, and I was struggling with, spending a half day with them, trying to do all this stuff and then still do my work and stuff like that. So when the counselors were like, you don't have to do that, you can just do these bursts of time with them, and it'll vary, again, littles and bigs, it's a little bit different, but it works amazingly well. I cannot tell you, I was shocked at how much, like, instead of a full hour, it's not even an hour a day that I would have to spend with them if I do these little bursts of time. So what is that? So you want to block schedule your day to include breaks for the kids. So younger kids, it's going to be more frequent and shorter periods of time. Older kids, it's going to be less frequent, but it'll be longer periods of time. So instead of 10 minutes with older kids, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, but you don't have to do as many of them. You may just need 2 breaks a day to do that. Whereas with a little kid, you may need 4 10-minute breaks. Does that make sense? When you're doing these breaks, you are fully committed to them and your attention is all on them. So whatever you were working on before, you leave it alone, put your cell phone aside. It is all eyes on them for that duration of time. You're talking, you're interacting with them, and it makes so much difference. Rules, you schedule the time. So the parent is the one scheduling the time. So you're in control of when the blocks of time happen. However, the child picks the activity. And so it's sort of that was one of the tips also that they gave me, is that the child then is allowed to pick the activity that you will focus on together. So whatever it is, it may be building Legos, reading a book, playing the video games, showing you what they're doing on their video games, homework, whatever it is they want to do with you, you let them pick that and give them control of that. Creating a routine so that the child looks forward to it each day. So that one I haven't quite adapted for my own personal self yet, since my days kind of varied from day to day. But if you're able to create a set routine, like every day at lunchtime, we're going to spend this block of time together, that's great. And then parenting shifts with the other parent or other members of the household. There's always one parent that's going to do more, take charge of stuff. So you just don't wait on the other parent to do it. But you do want to talk to them and agree on it so that the block time, you don't have to do it all yourself. You can have that block time shared with another person in your household, the other parent or a grandparent or whoever it is that you're living with, can do shared 10-minute parenting. And then you just take the lead in making it happen and enforcing it. Don't rely on the other person. You take control of the situation and you make it happen because it's your kid and you want them to thrive and do well. So that is 10-minute parenting in a nutshell. Okay, so lastly, let's address abuse and narcissistic parents. Unfortunately, the cycle of abuse tends to flourish under crisis situations, under stress. Crisis perpetuates the abuse by either keeping families stuck in this downward spiral, or they go through this cycle faster and they kind of cycle through their ups and down spiral or ups and down cycle a little bit faster in times of stress. And so it just becomes exhausting to be in this loop. And so with narcissists especially, living together presents even more interactions for negativity and stuff and abuse. So what can you do to minimize the effects of this? First and foremost, you want to speak with a professional. That's my number one tip and advice is, narcissists and abusive personalities, that is a whole different ballgame than normal rational people. And you really do need to talk to a professional who is trained and coached in this. As divorce lawyers, we have experience, but it is very superficial experience with the depth of what you're really dealing with. And that is not our job as a lawyer. to cure that problem or solve that problem or address it. All we can do is kind of offer you tips and advice from what we have gleaned from our experience, but we are not trained therapists, and you really need to talk to someone who is a trained therapist that can help you cope long-term with the narcissists and abusers. And so again, the tips I'm offering here today are based on my conversations with healthcare professionals and our clients, and it's not professional legal advice that you would get from a mental health professional. Safety planning. So that's another thing you should be doing if you're in an abusive situation. Where can you go? Think about where can you go while we're under quarantine. So plan ahead, speak with friends, family, neighbors, and your church regarding whether they would be able to shelter you for a little while. Certainly reach out to shelters too, and see if that's an option. A lot of the shelters right now, from what we're hearing, are being overrun with people. So shelter, while open, may not be able to help you immediately. So you need to have a backup plan. Check hotels also and find out how much it would cost to stay there for maybe a week or a couple of nights, and set aside money to cover that cost. And make sure that you have a place that is clean with the COVID situation and has good policies and procedures in sanitizing things. And then if you need, and then obviously if you can't leave your house, there are hotlines available. The National Domestic Hotline is a resource as well. And I'm going to post here a link. So on our blog, we have a domestic violence resource page. So feel free to check that out. And we did early on in this crisis back in March, I think it was, we did a webinar interview with Dallas Mom's blog, and we talked about abuse and some of the apps. There's a lot of great apps out there that can help you. And so just check out that. And so we have it listed in there. So, and if you do stay in an abusive situation, you need to really consider the effect that it's having on your children. In addition to the stress of COVID and everything, you're now also continuing to subject them to this stress. And so an exercise that some of the therapists suggested is, name 3 benefits that to your children of staying in an abusive relationship that outweigh the seeds that you're planting in them of shame, anger, and guilt. And then that will help you thinking through this process and what you need to do. And, life with a narcissist is all consuming, and it can be. So remember that you can offer more to your kids when you are free of the narcissist in your life. All right, tips for dealing with narcissists specifically if the narcissist is the parent of your child. First, you want to minimize contact. The contact that you do have in the communication, don't take it personally. It may feel like it's an emergency, but chances are it's not. So you want to have a cooling off period before responding to them if you respond at all. Not responding is an option. And, him unloading on you that you're a terrible mom, that's not an emergency, but it can hurt. And so you need to be able to distinguish your emotions from the factual situation. Recognize that his attacks are coming from a place of insecurity and his lack of control. Those are not your problems. Those are his own dysfunctions, and that's why he's acting out. Learn to expect the power plays from him, things like late pickups and drop-offs during visitations, late child support payments, bringing his girlfriend to exchanges, things like that. Those are just going to become part of life with a narcissist parent on the other side. There's not a whole lot you can do about that kind of thing, but you can do something to cope with your own emotions and your own response. When you're communicating, stick to just the facts. Don't go anything beyond just the facts. Focusing the communication on the child. So when you guys are communicating, ask, in what way does this communication benefit my child? And if you see that it's not really a benefit or about your child, then that's something that's intended to harass you. Alienation, so parental alienation is a big one that we see. So to counter alienation tactics, help the kids create boundaries. Again, this is where you want to work with a therapist who helps children dealing with narcissistic parents. to create the sort of boundaries that they need to feel in control and confident of the situation. And so when you are doing your non-responsive behavior, sometimes the kids may question that and say, hey, why are you not, like, they're kind of maybe confused. So you don't want to talk to them in front of the narcissist, but talk to them privately regarding why you are doing what you're doing, why you're not responding to the narcissist prodding. Especially older kids, I think that's an important conversation to have, because they may see it differently than what it actually is. So explaining to them why you're not fighting back or why you're not responding can be a really good conversation to have with them, so they understand that. If you have to do phone calls with the kids, doing phone calls between the child and the narcissist during a part of the day, that can support the child's mood and prepare them for the negative talk that they're going to hear. So you know your child best. So, if you know that they're going to be stronger in the morning and they can accept phone calls from that person in the morning and process them without it negatively impacting their day, great. If you think that it's something that really, let's save it to the end of the day, I don't know how tired they're going to be, but it could not be great to necessarily do it before bedtime either, to upset them before bedtime. But again, so you kind of work and figure out when are good times. Maybe it's, after school, before they go off to an activity or to playtime or something, where, they can process the information and then they can go get their anger out through some physical activity, that kind of thing. So whatever it is, consider that too. And again, speak with a therapist who focuses on helping children and spouses of narcissists and abusers about the best strategies for your particular situation. These were just some tips and suggestions that we've been offered. And if you need help finding one of those experts, let us know, because we do have a network of mental health professionals in a variety of specialties, including narcissistic personality disorder and abuse. So, all right, lastly, let's take a moment to recognize that the struggle is real, but we are in this together. We all experience crisis, even outside of COVID. We all have crisis in our lives that we experience. That's going to happen. And even those who seem to have it all under control don't necessarily have it under control. They're still going to have crisis and panic attacks and things like that too. So we just need to accept that blow-ups are going to happen. And we need to accept that there are going to be things that are going to slip through the cracks. We also need to accept that we need to appreciate all the essential workers out there, like nurses, doctors, and first responders. They are not getting their time with the kids right now. So we actually have a good friend of ours who is a nurse, and her husband's a pharmacist, and unfortunately their daughter is spending a lot of time at the grandparents' house. And so my heart goes out to the people in those situations, because they are not getting this precious time with their children. They're in fact losing time with those children. So, if any of you guys are first responders or nurses or anything like that, and you want to talk, please let us know. We can listen. We're here to help and offer you whatever resources we can. All right, so that's all I have for today. In order for us to plan a brighter future and become stronger, we need to continue the conversation. So I would love for you guys to join us in our next video series, Tackling Debt, How Coronavirus is Presenting Novel Ways to Eliminate Debt. That one is going to be, let's see, debt and other financial stress is a big reason why a lot of couples divorce. While we're not financial experts, we have picked up some valuable information resources while helping our clients who have debt and are going through the divorce process. So we will not be focusing on divorce, and the information we're going to be discussing is applicable to everyone. So please feel free to invite your friends and family to join us as well. And of course, don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Family Law DFW to get the latest updates, resources, and inspiration to help you thrive through any crisis. I'm going to take a quick check of the chat and let's see if there's any questions or anything like that. What apps can you recommend for co-parenting? There are several apps out there. Our Family Wizard is one that I think of immediately just because they have a big marketing budget and I'm constantly seeing them. But I know that there's a lot of other apps out there and we have them in our resources. Katie is going to send you guys a follow-up email. So maybe Katie, if you're listening, could you see about putting maybe some co-parenting apps into that email as well, like a link to that. Maybe we can put a blog page up listing out all the apps and then just a link to the blog page with that information. Perfect. All right. So Katie will get that done for you guys, okay? And we are offering replays of all the webinars. So if you've attended any of our webinars and you want to see a replay or anything like that, let us know. We can send you a link. We've figured out how to do it. So thank you, Katie. And we can send you a link to any replays that you're interested in watching as well. Okay, so if there are no other questions or anything like that, I think, what is your opinion on the fact that the courts aren't open and need to get temporary orders? That is actually not true. So the courts are open and we are doing temporary orders and protective orders. So I guess that is my opinion, is we're moving forward with cases. So that actually, you're not the first person who's said that. So I think there was a big push to let everybody know that courts had shut down, but I don't think that there's been the same push to let everybody know that courts have reopened. Now, I think maybe that's because not all the courts have, but I know Dallas and Collin County and I think most of our surrounding counties here in North Texas have opened. And we are accepting divorces and processing divorces and moving forward with hearings and mediations. We are settling cases. We are moving forward. So the courts are open. And so, yeah, that's my opinion, is that you can still move forward. Okay. All righty. Well, thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.